Everybody flexes about the 60s muscle car era. But let's be real, the 80s was when muscle went full undercover mode. Forget disco balls and neon leggings. This was the decade when a Buick could secretly smoke a Corvette, a Mustang showed up with a turbo four-cylinder, and your neighbor's Monte Carlo looked like it just drove straight off a NASCAR track. So buckle up, because we're about to count down 5 80s muscle legends that prove the decade wasn't all mullets and mixtapes. Well, maybe a little. These were the top 5 muscle cars from the 80s in non-ranking order. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Buick Grand National GNX, the dark horse. Primarily, the Buick Grand National GNX. And no, this wasn't your grandma's Sunday cruiser. This thing looked like Darth Vader on wheels. Completely blacked out. No chrome, no frills. Just mean. Under the hood? A turbocharged V6 pumping out around 245 horsepower. Not insane by today's standards, but in the 80s, this car was a silent assassin. It ate Corvettes alive at the drag strip. And get this, GM actually limited production because they didn't want it embarrassing their own sports car lineup. Imagine being so good that your own company says, "Yeah, tone it down, bro." Today, a clean GNX can sell for 6 figures. Proof that the baddest muscle car of the 80s wasn't even rocking a V8. But if Buick was the villain in black, Chevy was about to play the flashy hero, Camaro IROC-Z. The poster child entered the Camaro IROC-Z, the car that basically screamed, "I live for rock anthems and leather jackets." It had the looks, low stance, T-tops, bold graphics, and the power to back it up with a 5.7-liter V8 pushing up to 225 horsepower. And let's not lie, every kid in the 80s had a poster of this thing taped to their bedroom wall right next to Van Halen. Was it the fastest? Nah. But it was fun, stylish, and revived Camaro's reputation after a pretty boring stretch. Plus, if you rolled up to school in an IROC, you didn't need game. The car was the game. But while Chevy was flexing muscle, Ford decided to break the rules entirely. Ford Mustang SVO, the turbo underdog. So picture this. You're expecting a Mustang to roar in with a V8, and instead Ford drops a turbocharged 4-cylinder. Everyone's like, wait, what? But here's the thing. It worked. The Mustang SVO made about 205 horsepower, and thanks to its lighter engine, it actually handled way better than the traditional V8 models. It had upgraded suspension, better brakes, and it cornered like it had something to prove. This was the Mustang for people who wanted brains and brawn. Today, it's a cult classic because it showed muscle didn't always mean big cubic inches. It could mean smart engineering too. Speaking of star power, though, one car didn't just own the streets, it owned Hollywood. Pontiac Trans Am, the Hollywood rebel. Now, if you were alive in the 80s, you already know this car, the Pontiac Trans Am. Thanks to Smokey and the Bandit, this thing was basically the celebrity of American muscle. The early 80s version packed a turbo V8 with around 200 horsepower, and by the end of the decade, the GTA models were hitting close to 250. But let's be honest, people didn't buy it for numbers. They bought it because it looked like you could outrun the cops, win a street race, and get the girl, all in one night. This car didn't just move metal, it moved culture. But while Pontiac was making movie stars, Chevrolet was still chasing checkered flags. Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS, the track rat. The Monte Carlo SS wasn't just another street car, it was born from NASCAR. Chevy literally built this thing to dominate on the oval tracks, and then sold versions you could park in your driveway. It had a 305 cubic inch V8, slick aerodynamics, and a body style that screamed, "I'm late to work, but I'm still drafting the guy in front of me." Fans loved it because it felt like a race car for the people, and if you had one with the aero coupe back window, you were basically living in the fast lane. So there you have it, the undercover heroes of 80s American muscle. The GNX that embarrassed Corvettes, the IROC-Z that turned hallways into runways, the Mustang SVO that proved turbos could be cool, the Trans Am that became a Hollywood icon, and the Monte Carlo that lived and breathed NASCAR. The 80s may not have been about raw horsepower like the 60s, but it gave us style, attitude, and some of the most unforgettable muscle cars ever built. Now I gotta ask, If you had to take just one of these cars home, which one's sitting in your garage? Drop it in the comments and let's see which 80s muscle rules the streets today.